Well, there's great disappointment, of course, that we are not yet having an opportunity to analyse a treaty, and we hoped to sign a treaty by the 30th of June. That would have been the optimal position, but still great optimism and enthusiasm that we will be able to have this negotiation and that we will be able to see a successful process result in a UK-EU treaty in relation to Gibraltar. The delay, of course, is in the Commission. The Commission is preparing to negotiate this. As at the 31st of December, the UK, Spain and Gibraltar were ready to start this negotiation because we'd finished the negotiation of the New Year's Eve agreement. But the Commission had to start from scratch, literally, to prepare its mandate, which we must respect it is doing, to ensure that they are ready to negotiate for the 27 member states, not just for Spain, this agreement with the United Kingdom. That is what has brought the delay. It's obvious that the Commission have been suffering the effects of COVID, like we all have, having to deal with the administrative aspects of COVID across the whole European Union. That has resulted in the delay. I'm not making any excuses or apologies for them because we haven't been in touch with them on the issue of the delay. That's a matter for them and the member states. But there isn't a line in the sand that says if you haven't finished it by the 30th of June, you have a hard Brexit. In fact, we've extended already administratively the processes that we needed to extend to ensure that things can continue to run as normal as from the 1st of July. You reported the BOE in Spain, the Boletín Oficial del Estado in Spain, which extended provisions in relation to Gibraltar beyond the 30th of June. So we're in a good place to continue this process going forward, but we don't want it to be indefinite, of course.
When are you expecting these talks to begin?
So it's not possible for me to say with any certainty, but I would imagine that we will now see, from what we know that the Commission is doing, we will know that the mandate is now expected sometime during the early part of the summer or during the summer, and we therefore hope that with a mandate, the Council will be able to come involved. The Council is the heads of state of all of the member states coming together in the European Union to approve the Commission's mandate so that the negotiation can begin. And I would have thought that now you're looking at a negotiation at best starting in late summer, perhaps in the early autumn. And look, I would hope that during this calendar year we will see a resolution. But again, let's not put ourselves in a position that we've seen others put themselves in by saying there is a hard line in the calendar beyond which we cannot go, and there will have then the consequences of hard Brexit visited upon Gibraltar simply because we wanted to draw that hard line. That's not going to be our position. There will eventually have to be a hard line, but we won't be the ones setting something which is fixed, which creates jeopardy for us.
Now, you've warned that when the EU mandate does emerge, it may not make for pleasant reading. What are you anticipating?
So just let me be very clear with people. The mandate from the European Commission is the EU's opening position. We are likely not to enjoy reading it. And if that were presented to us as the treaty, we would very likely say, we don't want this treaty, this is a bad treaty for Gibraltar, we'd rather have no treaty than the bad treaty that this represents. And just like in any negotiation, this is negotiation 101, the first position that your opponent will set out will be the position which he knows you will not accept and that you have to negotiate against. So we're prepared for that. I think that
What's that going to be, Chief Minister?
Well, I don't know because I'm not preparing the mandate. I'm prepared to face the mandate when it comes, and I anticipate, from everything that I've seen in the way that the EU has behaved in the context of the negotiation with the United Kingdom of the withdrawal agreement and of the trade agreement, that the positions that we will expect to see from the Commission early on are unlikely to be agreeable to us. And what I'm going to say to people is, look, expect that. Expect the EU mandate to be very disagreeable, frankly. And if the EU were to go into the negotiations saying that it's not going to move from its disagreeable mandate, then the EU will be condemning to a no treaty, hard Brexit, all those on their side of the geographical line north of the frontier, to the consequences of a hard Brexit, because the government of Gibraltar is certainly not going to agree to a bad treaty for Gibraltar, and I'm sure that the United Kingdom government is in exactly the same position because we're working hand in glove together. But let's be very clear, it's the opening position. And we have negotiated against opening positions that are disagreeable to us, and successfully so that we've produced middle ground positions which have been acceptable to us, as in the New Year's Eve agreement. So that's the message I think is an important one to give, not to think that the mandate, when it emerges, is the dictation to us of the terms of a treaty that we must accept, because it is not.
There's already an in-principle agreement in place, so how far will this treaty differ?
I'm not expecting the treaty to be different to the in-principle agreement in any material respect, unless that is agreeable to us and to the United Kingdom, because there will not be a treaty if it differs from the New Year's Eve agreement in a way that is not agreeable to the United Kingdom and Gibraltar. And those are conjunctive. In other words, it has to be agreeable to the United Kingdom that's going to sign it, but the United Kingdom is very clear that it must also be acceptable and agreeable to the people of Gibraltar, because otherwise they won't sign it. And we are very, very together on this, very hand in glove on this. So don't please think about the treaty being in unacceptable terms, because there is no treaty in unacceptable terms. It's only a treaty if the terms are acceptable.
Do you, as Gibraltar's representative, have the final say?
So I think that is abundantly clear. The United Kingdom will not enter into a treaty about Gibraltar that Gibraltar is not satisfied with. And Gibraltar will not ask the United Kingdom to enter into a treaty about Gibraltar that United Kingdom ministers might have reservations about either. Because we're working so closely together on this. I must tell you, I've never been happier with the way that the relationship between the government of Gibraltar and the United Kingdom government has developed. Because we think as one, we have strategized together, we've worked together to deliver the New Year's Eve agreement, and therefore we know instinctively together where we're going to try and take the treaty, because that's where we've taken the New Year's Eve agreement. And whatever the European Commission may set out in its mandate, we will be negotiating faithfully to the New Year's Eve agreement, which is the balance that we've agreed with the member state Spain, which is the member state that's asking the Commission now to spin up this mandate, to have this negotiation, which, whatever the opening position may be, can only reach a good and happy port of disembarkation for all of the relevant parties here and across the frontier, if it is agreeable to Gibraltar and the United Kingdom.
And finally, Chief Minister, you've already said that you have a mandate for these negotiations and that it doesn't affect the Constitution, so that there's no need for a referendum, even though we're all a bit referendum fatigued right now. And if there was a real call for one, would you give the people the final say?
I've been very clear throughout this process, even during the run-up to the general election, that there will not be a referendum on issues relating to the negotiation. The negotiation is a piece of the political work which the government has had a mandate for in the general election in very specific terms, unless there is an issue which affects the status of Gibraltar, the sovereignty of Gibraltar, the constitution of Gibraltar, because we can't have referenda on every aspect of every issue, because otherwise we would not be able to get on with the work that is the mandate that we've been given to do by the people.
But the final treaty, on the final treaty?
So the treaty is the fruit of the mandate that we've been given, a mandate to negotiate in the general election. So I really don't see that there is a reason at the moment, given what we're negotiating, to have a referendum on the fruit of that work, which is the treaty that will be produced. I really don't think that that will be the case. Look, you're going to get people who don't like the treaty, who will say, I don't like it, so I'd quite like an opportunity to vote against it, so give me a referendum. But look, there are things that the government does that are liked by many people and disliked by some people, and you can't have a referendum on any of those. At the end of the day, remember what we are dealing with here. We are dealing with only a deal on frontier fluidity, immigration and trade. We are not dealing with an issue that involves sovereignty, jurisdiction or control of Gibraltar in any way that affects status.